Geography now, Denmark.
Oh, we're going to the land of the Danes.
I've been to Denmark before. I think I was there for 2 days. It was just a stopover between Norway and Germany. It was a nice. Copenhagen was nice. It was a nice city, very clean, a lot of bikes, and some pretty good food.
What other stereotypes can we add about Denmark before we start the video? Because that's what we do. We're Americans. We have to stereotype everything about Europe.
And Denmark is the happiest country in the world and the least corrupt government in the world.
They have a flag that's red and white.
They're not very friendly. That's like the stereotype. I don't recall people being not friendly when I was there, but they're supposed to not be very friendly.
I just watched a Walter's World video of him saying, it was like a new one of him saying the least friendly countries, and his thing for Denmark was that it's not that they're not friendly, they know you're a tourist and they don't care about you.
Yeah, I watched that one too, actually. The guy said, like, he was explaining it in the video, and the guy came up and he said, "Yes, you you explained that very well." And then he just walked away.
Yeah. They're Scandinavian, but they're not Nordic, right?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
vice versa.
Or No. Is that Finland? That's not Scandinavian, but is Nordic?
I don't know. I'm confused about that.
Something. You guys are blonde and stuff up there, right?
Yeah, the flag. The cross.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into this. Hopefully one day we'll be coming back to Denmark, him going to Denmark, and and vlogging it on our travel vlog channel, TriFate Lifestyle. You can check it out down in the description below. We've been traveling all over Asia, a few places in Europe, and just traveling. Check it out. Link in the description below.
Let us know if there's more Denmark stuff you want us to check out, or give us a video link.
Let's do this. Here we go.
Remember in the Angola episode I mentioned how I went to Denmark one time and bought a sandwich that was $21? Well, this was that sandwich, and my reaction was like, $21? Oh, this better be the best sandwich I've ever had in my life. You got lucky.
That sandwich he's ever had his entire life.
No! Hey everybody, I'm your host.
Denmark was the first time I ever had coffee in my life. Like, I got it with my breakfast, and it was unbearably strong. I never wanted to drink coffee again. There we go.
Barbie, Legos, Vikings, and Roll med fløjl. We got a lot to cover, so let's jump in. Denmark, the link between the rest of Europe and Scandinavia. So much to discuss. Denmark is classified as a Nordic country, hence located in the Northern European region, even though it's kind of like the southernmost state in the Nordics. Full disclaimer, ignore Wikipedia. I'm going to pronounce the location names in their proper Danish context.
So is Scandinavia, is it just Norway and Sweden?
Yeah, maybe Finland? Or is Finland the one that's not Nordic but is Scandinavian?
I don't know.
And then Norway and Sweden are the only ones that are Nordic and Scandinavian. But Finland isn't Nordic, but it is Scandinavian. And then the other ones, like Iceland, they're all, I don't know.
Something. You guys are up there in the north, you know?
Denmark is made of the Jutland, not Jutland Peninsula that connects to Germany in the south, as well as 1,419 islands. Of those, only 443 are named and 74 are inhabited. With the largest island being Sjælland, not Zealand, which is not to be confused with Dutch Zeeland, which is not to be confused with New Zealand, although they did get their name.
I can't take it! That's too much information!
It is connected to Fyn Island, not Finn Island, by the Great Belt Bridge completed in 1998. The country is divided into 5 regions, the capital being Copenhagen, located on Sjælland. Copenhagen is home to a myriad of historical sites, palaces, statues, residential units that are all the same height and style, with pockets of colorful, quaint, cozy shops and cafes, and dangerous bicycle lanes that you are not supposed to walk on. Now, this is where things are going to get a little spiced up, and by spiced up, I mean freezing cold and covered in whale blubber. Denmark, for those of you who didn't know, is a kingdom, one of the last surviving ones in Europe, and is currently under the headship of chain-smoking Queen Margaret II. These still fall under Danish sovereignty and make up the massive Greenland Island and the Little Faroe Islands. Both of these places are radically different from mainland Denmark. For one, Greenland is primarily inhabited by native Inuit tribal peoples that live on the island and is 80% covered in ice year-round. The Faroe Islands are a conglomeration of 20-ish mystical cloudy islands that have this crazy-looking lake that looks like it's about to spill over the cliffs into the ocean. These two areas have their own self-governing home rule, otherwise only depending on Denmark for military, justice, currency, and foreign affairs. Otherwise, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean,
interesting to depend on Denmark for military.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Wouldn't think Denmark has the biggest military out there.
Do they have a good navy then or something?
Well, they're in NATO, so you think that would just mean they all just get to be part of NATO too, so.
Yeah, that's how it works.
They try to kind of create an empire by colonizing parts of the Caribbean, Ghana, India, and then in the Nicobar Islands in the Indian Ocean, but they kind of ran out of money and ended up selling everything to other countries. Too bad. It would be awesome to see people in the Indian Ocean speaking Danish. Nonetheless, mainland Denmark is kind of like a fast-moving economic machine. Let's talk about how. Now, when it comes to land makeup, Denmark is pretty flat. I mean, the highest point, Møllehøj, is only about 170 meters tall, and it looks like this.
Wow.
Otherwise, only about 13% of the country is forested, including the tree plantations, and the rest is pretty much used for agriculture that can produce enough food to feed about 15 million people. It's about 3 times the size of their entire population. Good for you, Denmark. But one thing Denmark is actually famous for growing is non-produce plants like grass, fodder, and Christmas trees. The highly sought-after Danish Nordmann fir has been classified as the Rolls-Royce of Christmas trees, and every year, investors from Germany, the Netherlands, and even the UK jump in at the end of November and grab whatever they can before it's gone. Now, one thing you need to know is that, like many other areas in the Nordic region, Denmark's weather can be quite dreary. First of all, Denmark is the only Nordic country that doesn't really get a lot of snow. Denmark is kind of like the mud pit located below the jet stream blocked by Norway and the UK. This means that even though it gets really cold, pressure systems rarely cause snow. This is also pretty much why everybody dresses like a J. Crew fall fashion line model on the streets. If you're gonna get wet and freezing, you may as well look good while doing it. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, pretty much the rest of Denmark is just rolling green plains with sandy beaches and quirky little islands that people like to hop over for camping trips in the summer. If we were gonna talk about Greenland and the Faroe Islands, we would get a radically different story of mind-boggling, captivating cliffs, bluffs, sea stacks, glaciers, fissures, icebergs, and mountains. If you don't know what a Mulan is, it's not this, but this.
This Mulan is large enough to swallow a school bus.
A school bus?
That's
but
so
we'll have to
scary.
say that for another video. They'll come out in 9,374 years. In the meantime, let's talk about the people. Now this is gonna get really fun. Denmark's people are really unique in their cultural, historical, and postmodern upbringing. First of all, the country has about 5.7 million people and is one of the highest taxed countries in the world. About 89% of the country identifies as ethnically Danish.
But also one of the happiest? What?
Some of the largest groups in the other category being the Polish, Germans, Turkish, Romanians, Iraqis, and Afghans. Now when it comes to Danish culture, there's a lot behind it, but in a nutshell, Vikings. Vikings pretty much had their start in what is now present-day Denmark and whom pretty much dominated all of the Nordic regions as far as...
I always associate Vikings with Norway.
Yes, for sure.
New Finland and Canada to Estonia, which is why most of the Nordic states and regions can pretty much understand each other when they talk. Danes, Swedes, Norwegians, and Icelanders can generally understand each other as they have the same basic linguistic structure. Sure, there are subtle discrepancies, but overall they can kind of get by conversationally. Granted, there's a saying.
Does this remind you of SpongeBob? Happy Leif Erikson Day! Laflarga Hargan.
Is that offensive? Are you guys offended by SpongeBob?
Laflarga Hargan. Is that like an offensive thing to say? Because Icelandic road signs literally look like they say Laflarga Hargan.
That's what we do when we go to Iceland.
Laflorda Harlakar.
We Florga Harga Harga.
Yep.
The Norwegian and Swedish languages sound like dancing fairies, whereas the Danish language sounds like a dude with a potato in his mouth. By the way, anybody who wants to learn Danish, full disclosure, it's gonna suck. The J makes the Y sound, the Y makes the U sound, the V makes a W sound, the R makes a sound, the H is silent half the time, a ton of the letters are never even used, and don't even get started on A, U, and O. I kind of discovered a little trick when I went to Denmark. When speaking Danish, all you really have to do is kind of like pronounce the first part of the word that you think makes a sound, and then just kind of like give up on the rest of the word. For example, Copenhagen. Neubruggen, Lufstrand. I'm literally just listing names of places in Copenhagen that I've been to. Honestly though, you really won't have much of a problem getting around if you speak English. Over 80% of the entire country, mostly the younger generation, speaks proficient English to the point where they don't even need subtitles when watching American TV shows and movies. Also,
Dang.
keep in mind, Greenland has its own language that is completely unintelligible, as it's an Inuit language closer to the indigenous Inuktitut and Yupik languages found in Canada and Alaska. And Faroese is pretty hard for most Danish people to grasp, as it actually has more words rooted in the ancient Norse language, and it's actually more intelligible to Icelandic. Back to culture though, Denmark has definitely left its mark, whether it's notable figures like author Hans Christian Andersen, philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, or whether...
How do you pronounce his name?
That's actually how you pronounce his name.
Wow.
It's not Soren Kierkegaard. It's... Or whether it be the invention of the loudspeaker, or Legos, or their love of handball, their impeccable architecture, love of cuisine. Noma in Copenhagen, by the way, being voted the best restaurant in the world with plates that feature live ants and moss. If you're really gonna get a feel for Danish culture, though,
I don't trust any of these lists anymore. All these countries we go to, the best restaurants are always weird.
I mean, I was even thinking about that with like the Michelin star places or stuff like that. Like, why not just eat McDonald's?
Yeah, come on.
That part's the joke. But like, a lot of the like top lists, it's always like, oh, is this actually the best? And then you go to some local place and you're like, oh, this is way better than that place.
Yeah, and way more food, because it's always like tiny little portions.
For $400.
We always look at lists on countries we go to of like best restaurants, and then once we see the size of the dishes are absolutely tiny, we're like, nope, not gonna go to that one. We know what the price is gonna be. Next.
It really sucks wanting Italian food in Asia, because sometimes you just look at all of the Italian places and it's just little, very well plated dishes, and you're like, I can't afford to eat there.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
you kind of have to know about janteloten and hygge. The funny thing is, Danes are kind of brought up in a social mindset that is kind of integrated into their subconscious, known as janteloten, which kind of translates to something like, you are not better than the crowd, which I know sounds kind of depressing,
Good
but
idea.
it's really trying to instill a sense of equality and communal cooperation. Hygge translates to something like, spend good times with friends and family, and it's like a cozy thing. Of course, Denmark is known for being ranked one of the happiest overall countries, even though they are also kind of one of the highest ranked consumers of antidepressants as well. But hey, they still pull off everyday life.
Is that show that antidepressants work?
New advertising campaign. Get them now.
Even though some people that take antidepressants kind of end up like zombies.
And it's like, if you have like other things, like if you have anxiety and depression, and then you take antidepressants, it makes your anxiety worse, I think, or something like that. And then I don't know. The medications can get weird.
Just don't be depressed, guys.
Come on. Just be happy.
Don't worry
Be
about a
happy.
thing. Oh yeah. All right.
Oh so good, even if it's during one of those really loud annual emergency drills.
Okay, Christine, explain what's happening right now.
Denmark is testing the sirens for warfare. Yeah, when we're being attacked by the Germans again.
I'm scared. I'm really, really scared right now.
Let's run to the security basement.
The Germans are coming! Speaking of Germans,
The dang Germans.
The
now we all know
Germans.
that one person we're all kind of jealous of because they're kind of rich, well-adjusted, and have a ton of friends, and they're like kind of good-looking. Well, that's Norway. Denmark is a little bit...
I don't know if I know anybody like that.
No. Maybe we are them.
Yeah, I think so. We're rich. No, we're not.
No, but seriously,
Donate
it's such a
to
small
our
nation. Denmark has a
PayPal,
huge
please.
entourage of friends, and it's almost kind of hard for anyone in
Link
the
in
world
the
to dismiss them
description.
at a party. As a founding member of the
It's
EU
not.
and NATO, Denmark has had roots planted
we
in
don't have
diplomacy for decades. First off, Denmark generally gets along with Germany. Business between the Germans is a hugely integral part of their economy, and Denmark acts like the gateway to Scandinavia for them and the rest of Europe. The US and the UK are incredibly close, as both tangible and cultural imports have been established for centuries. For a while, the Danes even took over parts of the UK, which is why to this day the English English language still retains hundreds of Old Norse-derived words like leg, dog, and window. The closest friends, though, would have to be the Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Iceland. These four are without a doubt Denmark's closest friends, even though Sweden and them have kind of had more wars and battles historically than any other two states in the world. They've moved on and grown up. Out of the Nordic countries, though, Norway would probably be considered their best friends. Danes are obsessed with Norwegians and often consider Norway the girlfriend they took away from Sweden. In conclusion, Denmark is the rich, rainy rascal that always seems to show up on time for every party, but somehow gets all his work done in an organized, efficient manner. Stay tuned, Djibouti is coming up next.
Djibouti? Yeah, so that was Denmark. Despite all of our weird things that we said, Denmark's a cool place, and I would like to go back there again.
Yeah, let's see how well you guys can pick up on the sarcasm we had in this video. When were we joking and when weren't we? I just found it interesting. I feel like every time we watch a Geography Now video, whenever the next country is, we just shout it at the end and then don't say anything else about it.
Like, shout it as like a question, too. Djibouti?
And then we never watch the video.
But there's just a little bit of information about Denmark. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Check out the Travel by channel.
Link in the description.
See you in the next one. Bye.